Hi, in this video I'm going to show you how you can create context sensitive hotkeys. So hotkeys that would run while a key is pressed. Hotkeys that would only work when a particular window is active. And also hotkeys that would work if your mouse cursor is over a particular window of your choice. If this is something that interests you, please continue watching. Welcome back. Let's first start off with a very simple context-sensitive hotkey that we already have covered in our hotkey tutorial for creating hotkey using 3 keys. Now, the hashtag if creates a context sensitivity if there's a statement that follows it, and that statement has to be true in order for the command lines underneath that to work. Now, the subsequent hashtag if will turn off the context sensitivity, and therefore it's very important to place that after you create a context sensitive hotkey. Otherwise, everything underneath will be affected by that. So if I run this script, basically Alt control is left control. If I press left control and A and B, I should get the message box, right? Okay, so now this just turns out to be true if I press down the left control button, but I could also make it 1 equals 1, which is always going to be true. Now if I run this and press A and B, I'm going to get the message box because 1 is always 1. If I change it to 1 equals 2, which is always going to be false, run it again. If I press A and B, it's not going to show me the message box. That's how it works. So if the condition here, the condition here is true, make everything underneath work, right? So let me try again. Actually, let me do 1 and run it, and A and B will give me the message box. So that's the way to create a context sensitive command lines or hotkeys. Now we're going to cover if when active. So I'll delete this, type out if when active, Untitled Notepad. I'm going to make it so that if I press Alt Q, then text, Q pressed in Notepad. Also do if when active, and then Alt Q, show me a message box, Q pressed outside of Notepad. Now what this script is going to do is it's going to check whether the active window that I have active now has a title of Untitled-Notepad, and if so, by pressing Alt Q, it's going to send this text. Otherwise, so if when active is every other window because I left it as blank, pressing Alt Q will show me a message box that says Q pressed outside of Notepad. So if I go ahead and run this script and bring up Notepad and press Alt Q, it's going to send the text. If I go back to site and press Alt Q while site is active, it's going to show me the message box. Cool. So this time I'm going to create a function that is going to run hotkeys based on what window is underneath my mouse cursor. So let's erase all this and type out if. I'm going to create a function that's called mouse is over, and I'm going to pass a value to the function called AutoHotkey class notepad, and this basically means any notepad. Now let me go ahead and create this function down here. Mouse is over win title, and win title is going to be the parameter that accepts this value. Win title and mouse get position ID, make that capital letters ID, and return when exists win title AutoHotkey ID and ID. Now, gotta close the function out. So what this function does is when the function runs, runs by this command. It will accept that AutoHotkey class notepad value by this WinTitle parameter. It will place that in here, but before it places that in here, what it's going to do is this command line identifies the unique ID of the window that is underneath your mouse cursor. Now it will then return a value that is output by this command, and this command, when exist, returns a false if the window that it tried to identify or check if it exists using this criteria inside. If it couldn't identify any windows, then it's going to return a false value to the if statement that creates a context sensitivity. And if it returns a false value, then this context sensitivity will not be switched on, and any hotkey that I'm going to create underneath won't work. Now, if there is a window that is identified by this command, then it's going to return a value that represents the ID of that window. And when that gets returned back to this line, the third line here, the if statement will be met and the hotkeys underneath will be able to run. Now, this basically gets converted into that AutoHotkey ID, and then the value, the string that represents the ID of the window that was underneath your mouse cursor at this point. So what this does is I'm going to look for the Notepad class, which represents all Notepad, and then also further narrow down my identification by the ID of the window that I was looking at. So if the ID was a Notepad, then it's going to return an ID by the winExist command. And if it cannot find a window that has an AutoHotkey class of Notepad and an ID of whatever ID that was identified by this command, it's going to return a false value. Now let me go ahead and create the hotkeys using mouse clicks, L button, send left, and send a new line, R button, send right, new line. Let me use the wheels as well. Send wheel up, new line. I misspelled that. Up and down. Send wheel down. Okay, so that's all good. If I run this script now, and then open up Notepad, and my mouse cursor, you see my mouse cursor is on top of the Notepad. If I press left button on my mouse, it's going to send that text right, and wheel up and wheel down. Now my mouse cursor is going to be on site now, and if I press let's say I press left button, it's not going to send the keys. Right button, wheel up, wheel down, it's not. Wheel up, wheel down is not going to send the keys. Now I'm just gonna go ahead and open up another Notepad. Now if I run the hotkeys, it's going to work while my mouse is over the Notepad, and it's not going to work when my mouse is over site. And likewise, let me just go ahead and make this window always on top, and I'm gonna activate site and going to move the mouse cursor over to my Notepad and then go wheel up. It's still going to reproduce the text on site because my mouse cursor is on top of a Notepad, and that's the condition that we have created here, so just be mindful of that. Now if you want to create a context sensitivity by windows other than Notepad, what I'm going to do is just exit out of the script, get out of that, remove this. What you can do is you can switch out this value with an AutoHotkey class of the program that you desire to base your hotkeys on. Now in order to do that, what you can do is, let me just bring up Notepad again. What you can do is go Start Windows Spy, and by launching the program that comes up when you press Start and type out Windows Spy, it's going to bring up this window. This is a program that comes with the installation of AutoHotkey. So if you have AutoHotkey installed, then you're going to be able to access this. Now what this does is when you activate a window while this Windows Spy is on, so I activated my Notepad, it will give us the properties of the window. So, and you can see in this dialog box, you can see AutoHotkey class as Notepad. Now, if I want to get the AutoHotkey class of site, just highlight site, and you'll see that the class has updated to site window. Now, you just gotta switch out this value with site. Let me get out of that and rerun. Then what's gonna happen is when your mouse is over site, if I press the left button, it will send the left strings, and right button will up and will down. If my mouse is back over my Notepad, it's not going to work. But even if my mouse cursor, even if my active window is Notepad, if my mouse cursor is back out on site, then the hotkeys will run. So if I go will down, it's going to produce the text on my Notepad. Alright, that's it for this video. Thanks for watching, and I'll be seeing you in the next video.